One of the most beautiful things about spring in Tennessee are all the native wildflowers that exist out in these country places on the little back roads of Tennessee, in places like rural Williamson County where we are now. Just outside of Leapers Fork, Tennessee is the garden of Shirlene Spicer, and you have got all kinds of things here. How long has it been since you started gardening out here?
Well, about 30 years.
Wow.
Yes.
As we walk along here, I see all kinds of different things. Now, obviously, there are some non-native plants mixed in with the natives. You've got lots of Lenten rose, you've got Solomon seal, and then I see wild Columbine and a variety of other things. How do you go about deciding what to add to the garden?
The plants kind of do their own thing here. That's why there's such a mix. I plant some things in places and then they spread, or I see a spot that I feel like I need some color, and so I move some things around. This little area here is a little more native than not, with the bluebells and the Columbines.
Right, and then I see Christmas fern coming up, which is evergreen, so that gives you a little winter interest out of one of our native plants.
The rhododendrons were probably some of the first things that I put into this area, and then I just started working it down, and natives just came.
Right.
Once things were let go, there's a lot of rudbeckias in there that they've spread, and I love it.
And they reseed themselves, and they just keep coming back. Now, you've been really successful with these rhododendrons. Is there a secret that you have?
One species, Roseum elegans.
Roseum elegans.
Is the one plant that I use repeatedly. It's a lavender flower, a little bit like the native Catawba in the Roan Mountains in the area. And it seems to like this acidic soil that I have here.
Right.
And when these guys are in bloom, they're just covered purple.
I'm sure.
It's really fun.
And I noticed they're planted kind of at the top of the garden, so they're kind of at the top of the ridge. They've got good drainage.
They also have good sun.
Acidic soil. And probably people don't realize that good sun is important, not only for rhododendrons, but for a lot of our native wildflowers. Where you see them growing in the wild, they are often growing in kind of clearings in the forest, not under the densest part of the shade. One of the most impressive things that I've seen here in your garden are these little patches of Crested Iris, which are native, and we've hit them just on the right day. They're right at their peak.
Yes.
But probably the plant that you have that nobody maybe has ever seen, unless they're really wildflower enthusiasts and have gone on some great hikes, are these beautiful yellow lady slipper orchids. Are they native to this area?
Yes, they are.
So they grow naturally on this ridge, and you were able to rescue some plants that were in harm's way,
yes.
I understand.
Yes.
And able to save those. So what a great thing to be able to do, and they certainly look like they're happy here.
They do, because they have the same kind of organisms. Orchids like this aren't transferable normally.
Right.
You couldn't dig that from this property and take it to another kind of sitting.
Right.
They have to have the same kinds of material.
In the soil, there's a relationship between all the little bacteria and things that grow in the soil where they like to be, and if you take them to another place, which is why we always say never dig them from the wild.
Correct. So this was totally a rescue. It's not something that I would encourage by no means.
Randomly went out and did.
Right.
Yeah. Another of the really special plants you have here that a lot of wildflower enthusiasts in particular really adore is the blue-eyed Mary.
I started out with a plant from the Chattanooga Nature Center. At that time, they were called reflection riding, and they grow a certain amount of these wildflowers and sell them about twice a year. Once you get a plant started, they spread themselves.
Right, they reseed.
Yes, they do. And so I just let them come up wherever they want to come up. And always each year I enjoy seeing where they're coming, and obviously they're in the path, so we walk around them. And
so in addition to the blue-eyed Mary that reseeds itself around the garden, you've got this terrific stand of our native Columbine.
Yes.
And does it attract the hummingbirds early in the spring?
Absolutely. They show up the day it opens.
Right. It's amazing how that works, and how they know to kind of follow the flowers northward as they migrate.
Yes, they do. That one actually opened about the first week of April.
And that's usually about the time the ruby-throated hummingbirds start coming through.
Yes, it is.
Now, obviously, this reseeds itself, so is it ever troublesome in the garden?
Not troublesome when it's in bloom, because I do enjoy it very much, but after it blooms, I would prefer to thin it out a little bit. So I do try to take it away from the other plants that are underneath.
Right. Well, I know you have a lot of wildlife out here in the garden. So wildlife that is desirable, like the birds, what all different kinds of birds do you have?
We have wrens and Carolina chickadees that nest in this one particularly. All the different birds have their different places that they really like.
You have bluebirds?
We have bluebirds. They are in another nest down there at this time.
Yeah, and I'm guessing probably lots of hummingbirds also.
A lot of hummingbirds, yes. They show about the first week of April.
So those obviously are critters that you want in the garden.
Yes.
I would imagine that there probably are some animals that you don't want to have in the garden also. I can only imagine that there are herds of deer probably out here that go
we
through the
have
property.
our own personal herd, you're correct.
Yes. So how do you manage the garden and the deer?
Well, I tend to, I mix a lot of plants, the hellebores they don't like.
Right.
And so I put those in places that I think that it will help to keep them away. And then I spray with a liquid fence.
You have some really impressive native azaleas here on the property. Were they already here?
Oh yes, they're totally native.
Yeah, so they're just wild and grow here. A lot of locals call those honeysuckle, but they're really not honeysuckle at all as we know it.
Correct.
And certainly not the invasive kind of honeysuckle that everybody's so worried about. This is a native deciduous azalea. Rhododendron alabamense is the botanical name. It actually looks like it flowers before the leaves. So they come out on bare stems after the winter and then flowers and then leaves a little bit later. So you really enjoy attracting a lot of birds and butterflies to the garden, and I know specifically you mentioned hummingbirds. What are some of the best plants that you have that really get the hummingbirds going?
Lady in Red salvia is red and full, and it seeds itself.
Right.
It's a really good one. And then I plant pineapple sage for the later fall season.
Right, because it blooms late.
Yes. Penstemons.
Right.
All of the penstemons work really well. Salvias, various salvias.
And I've noticed in my garden that it's not even always the red salvias. They'll come to black and blue and guarnitica and anything that has that sort of tube-shaped flower, even if it's purple. So besides the occasional garden tour where gardens maybe like yours or some other folks are open and people can see wildflowers, what are the other opportunities around Middle Tennessee and other areas where folks can go and see these beautiful wildflowers?
Oh, that's a good question. We have the Tennessee Native Plant Society, which leads outings to go and see some of these wildflowers. And then Tennessee Trails is in Tennessee, all over the state. Hikes, they tend to hike faster than the others, but I join them for great wildflower hikes. And Tennessee Scenic Rivers Association is a canoe club that we float some of the slower current rivers to see the flowers along the riverbanks. And the birds, the migratory species, of course, are now. The yellow thornatories are on the banks there. We see owls and great blue herons and bald eagles and such. The Audubon Society, which I'm very active with, the Cumberland Harpeth, is the Nashville chapter. And we do a lot of outings specifically for wildflowers and birds.
Okay, so there are quite a few opportunities really for people to go out, get out in nature a little bit and see some of these beautiful things out where they exist in the wild.
In the natural, yes.
Well, we've got a little sprinkle coming down on us right here at the end, but I want to say thank you so much for letting us come out and enjoy your beautiful garden. We appreciate it.
And I hope thank you for coming.
Again soon.
For inspiring garden tours, growing tips, and garden projects, visit our website at volunteergardener.org or on YouTube at the Volunteer Gardener channel, and like us on Facebook.